Text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Just a few weeks after reuniting with Black Sabbath and performing a farewell concert for fans. And I'm joined now by Alex Dyke, radio DJ, broadcaster, formerly of the BBC, who's going to pay a bit of a tribute, I think, to Ozzy Osbourne. Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much, Nigel. You know, Ozzy will probably be remembered as the guy who shouted "Sharon" at his wife in the Osbourne's reality TV show from the early 2000s. But there was so much more, Nigel, to Ozzy than that. He was a pioneer of heavy metal rock. And you've got to remember, in the very early 70s, the rock that was coming out of Britain after the Beatles had split up was progressive rock. It was self-indulgent 6-minute drum solos and things like that, you know, when you think back to early Genesis and Jethro Tull. But Ozzy wasn't that at all. He was a heavy metal pioneer and a heavy metal hero. He sold over 100 million albums with his band Black Sabbath, who fired him in... Nigel, did you know he was fired by Black Sabbath?
I didn't know that. For what reason?
He was fired, Nigel, because of his drug and drink problems. He was addicted. And when we do look back at him 20 years ago in the early noughties in the Osbournes, you could see then he was frail. His body was shot because he had abused his body so badly through drink and drugs. But Sharon Osbourne, of course, his wife, was his second wife. She was his manager, and he married her in the early 80s. And he came back as a solo star with a brilliant first album called Blizzard of Oz. Ozzy was all about showbiz.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're having great fun already. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Labour's much trumpeted migrant returns deal has got off to a disastrous start, as it's now emerged that human rights lawyers will be able to use a loophole to stop returns to France. And meanwhile, in the Channel, it's business as usual. Complete bedlam for illegal immigrants as they're on their way as we speak. Once and for all, have the lunatics finally taken over our asylum system? And a bombshell poll out today has shown that immigration is the single most important issue to British voters. Some 56% of you say it matters most to you, and that's the highest figure since post-Brexit, December 2016. I'll ask the legendary pollster John Curtis what that means for our under-fire government. And Rachel Reeves promised to fix the foundations of the economy, but it's emerged today that she's more than doubled the £22 billion black hole. With a £50 billion tax grab looking increasingly likely, is Britain's economy heading for a crash? And Prince Harry hits back as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with a charity that he co-founded went public, with a source telling GB News he is devastated while we were sparing a thought for the Duke. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, it's the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Yesterday, I called the immigration deal, the one-in, one-out deal, a chocolate teapot. Une théière chocolat is the French for that. I think I may have been charitable. I've been through the detail overnight, and it gets worse. We're going to set out in the show why many people believe this is the worst immigration deal in British history. Human rights lawyers still holding the whip hand. People can say they're under 18 and we have no way of proving otherwise. The French get to cherry pick who we can even send back, if we can send them back at all. And meanwhile, the British taxpayer, you, has to pay for the transportation costs of those coming in and those going out. Will we ever get a satisfactory solution? And meanwhile, the boats are rolling over the channel. Our man Mark White on the White Cliffs of Dover will bring you those fresh arrivals as they happen. Proof pudding, proof positive that on the second day of this deal, it's simply business as usual in the English Channel. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Well, we start this hour just with a breaking update from Birmingham Airport, where we are hearing reports that the runway there has shut after what they are calling an aircraft incident. A statement from Birmingham Airport saying following that incident, the runway is temporarily closed. We apologise, they say, for the inconvenience that this will cause. All flights, according to flight data, appear to be on hold, some diverting, and passengers at this stage being urged to check with their airline before they travel. We're also seeing pictures here in the newsroom that appear to show, and we will try to get these to you shortly later this hour, but appear to show a small aircraft skidding to one side of the runway at Birmingham Airport. So that light aircraft incident putting all flights on hold at Birmingham Airport, with the runway currently closed. I'm sure Martin will have plenty more on that later this hour. In other news, hundreds more migrants have crossed the Channel illegally today, a day after the government announced a signing of its migrant returns deal with France. The Border Force vessel Typhoon picked up the first group of at least 60 migrants just after 11:30 this morning. It's now arrived to Dover Harbour. A second Border Force vessel, Ranger, picked up another group of migrants and is also unloading. It says illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition, suggesting that that would be the case. Under terms of the agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under 18 years old. And this is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to smash the gangs. Well, Shadow Culture Minister Joe Robertson spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I think people have become very, very weary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said that if it does what it says on the tin, one in, one out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because one in means there'll be one out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
We will, in fact, have an update on those figures regarding small boat migrants with our Home and Security editor, Mark White, in just a few short moments. I'm sure he'll bring you the very latest. Prince Harry, meanwhile, is facing criticism from the charity watchdog after a dispute at the charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action for Centre Bale, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry, despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children the charity supports. A 56-year-old man who'd been on the run for 2 years to avoid being recalled to prison for a separate offence has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of a dog walker. Roy Barkley has been sentenced to Ipswich Crown Court to life with a minimum term of 25 years for murdering 57-year-old grandmother Anita Rose, who'd been out walking her dog in Brantham in Suffolk last year. Judge Martin Levitt described Barkley as someone prone to dangerous outbursts at the slightest confrontation. The Prime Minister says he does not recognise figures that suggest the government will need to raise taxes in the autumn budget. It's after Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises. The report has fuelled speculation over how the government may look to boost tax revenues in the autumn, including mounting rumours of possible wealth tax.
Some of the figures that have been put out are not figures that I recognise, but the budget won't be until later in the year, and that's why we'll have the forecast then, and we'll set out our plans. What's really important is that I'm very clear about our focus, which will be on living standards and making sure that people feel better off, partly because more money is coming into their pocket in the first place through better wages, and partly because we're bearing down on costs like mortgages and other costs to everyday families.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin is meeting with President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow. It comes as Donald Trump has set a deadline of Friday this week for Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. After arriving in Moscow today, Mr. Witkoff was met by presidential special representative Kirill Dmitriev. Donald Trump has described the meeting as pivotal in determining whether the United States goes ahead with those new sanctions. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. Do stay with us for an update on the situation in Birmingham and those migrant figures. Next, though, the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's how the markets are shaping up for you this afternoon. The pound will buy you $1.3310 and €1.1471. The price of gold is £2,526 and 20 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,162 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. It's Groundhog Day once again. Another day, another crisis in the Channel. As hundreds more migrants have arrived into the UK following the Channel one-in, one-out deal being announced yesterday. Well, let's cross now directly to Dover and speak to GB News' Home and Security Editor Mark White, perched there on the dockside in Dover. Mark, yesterday I called this deal a tachière chocolat, a chocolate teapot. Having been through the detail today, Mark, I feel I may have been charitable. Human rights lawyers can still stop anybody going back if they can claim that they're being under duress or if they're even under 18. How can we prove that? Not allowed to. The French can cherry pick who they even take back, and the British taxpayer picks up the transport bill in and out. And meanwhile, behind you, Mark, it's business as usual in the Channel.
Yeah, absolutely is. And there's no doubt that Labour are likely to get a taste of what happened to the Conservatives during their time in office, when not just their Rwanda bill was frustrated at every turn for years on end, but of course then they also had issues around trying to just return asylum seekers who were failed asylum seekers to their country of origin, because you would always get the human rights lawyers and also those activist groups intervening, advocating on behalf of asylum seekers to frustrate those efforts at every turn. So I think Labour now, in trying to enact this returns agreement with France, will probably find that's exactly what is going to happen to it, and their best intentions or efforts, even though it is a tiny minority of those coming across the Channel, even those numbers are likely, I think, to be subject to appeals once the human rights lawyers get their teeth into a specific case.
Could I briefly ask you, I saw you there with a certain Mr. Chris Philp, chasing dinghies, channeling, pun intended, his inner Nigel Farage. Don't you think he's got a bit of a brass neck? They didn't stop any boats when they were in power.
Well, this is it. I mean, he was rather angry at the sights that he was seeing of the French escorting these migrant boats safely across to UK waters. And I put it to him that, you know, they've been doing that for years. They were doing that when the Conservatives were in government. And I didn't really see him criticising that policy at the time, where he claims that they were critical of the French actions at that point. You can judge for yourselves. You can all remember back to how the Conservatives were trying to, in the same way as Labour is, doing deal after deal and giving hundreds of millions of pounds to the French in the hope that they would somehow be compliant in the efforts to stop the migrants crossing the channel. On the issue, for instance, of pushing the boats back, we've been hearing this government talking for months about the French finally enacting that policy. Nothing's happened as yet, and the boats keep coming. 155 migrants so far today, but my producer Chris down here tells us that there are now significant French patrol activities around Gravelines Beach, which is just in the Dunkirk area, thinking now that a significant number of migrant boats are about to push off from that end of the French coast.
OK, Mark White, you're doing God's work there on the cliffs of Dover, shining a light onto this unravelling scandal. Let's be absolutely frank about it. Bedlam, chaos in the Channel. Mark, we'll come back to you in the next hour. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And meanwhile, illegal immigrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. Under terms of the UK's agreements with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim, or if they even claim that they are under 18. Now, here's somebody who'll be delighted to hear that, and that's my next guest, the human rights lawyer, Shab Khan. Mr. Khan, welcome to the show. You must be licking your lips. Christmas came early, yet more fresh work for human rights lawyers like you. People can come in, and even under this new law, you'll be sharpening your pencil to make sure they're not returned to France.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how it makes any difference. I mean, I think it was on GBNews just 2 days ago where I said, someone, you know, they asked, you know, do you think it's going to work? I said, even if it works, you know, what difference does it make? It's, you know, basically 700 people arrive every week, and even according to this, we'll send 50 back. So I'm not sure, and if the whole point is it's not about 50 people, it's a deterrent. How much of a deterrent is that if you say to someone, you know, someone who's spending thousands on it, probably planning it for months, and you say, well, there's only a 95% chance you'll succeed, 5% you fail. How is that a deterrent? So I'm really not sure. I mean, it's just a Rwanda plan all over again. You know, one of the most expensive vacations anyone ever took. We, you know, spent almost £1 billion for 3 Home Secretaries to spend a few days in Rwanda. So it's just that all over again. I just don't see what difference it's going to make.
I find that astonishing. I find that telling. It's simply business as usual. As far as you're concerned, Shab Khan, this is as toothless as an old folks' home.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what you mean. The point is, yes, I mean, obviously we shouldn't be breaching people's human rights. And I don't know, I mean, you know, obviously you and so many others, you keep repeating legal loophole. I don't know what you mean by legal loophole. If that's literally there in black and that's what the law says, that's what the policy is. These people can make human rights claims. And then if they make a human rights claim, there's somehow, how is that a loophole? I'm not really sure what you mean. They're literally following the letter of law.
Let's quickly analyse that. Hang on. Let's quickly analyse that. If it's not even a loophole, if it's hiding in plain sight, if, as I'm getting from you, it's absolutely business as usual, what's the point of this deal?
That's what I mean. Well, I don't know. The point is we give France another few £100 million. That seems to be the whole point. That's what we've been doing for 15 years. I mean, I have no idea what the point of this is, other than, you know, obviously we got rid of Rwanda, so now Yvette Cooper had to come up with something, and that's what it is. Something to, you know, the people keep coming, you know, Nigel Farage and GBNews keep standing, recording people arriving on the cliffs of Dover, and that's what it is. But it's not going to make a difference. I don't think, other than, I don't know, cabinet ministers, does anyone think it's going to make any difference? So firstly, you know, I mean...
Well, the Prime Minister
even
did.
If they're saying 50...
Home Secretary did.
Sorry?
The Prime Minister thought it would make a difference. The Home Secretary thought it would make a difference. They told us it would make a difference. They told us it was history in making. You're saying it's business as usual.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, like I said, even if, you know, the government target is that, you know, they'll send 50 people back, I'm not sure how much of a difference that makes. And also, you know, like they're saying, the whole point is we'll send back people who don't have ties to the UK. and people who do have ties will be able to come here legally. So if you don't have ties to the UK, that means you're never going to have a chance to be in that list who's going to come here legally. So how is this deterring you? The point is, if you wait for someone to call you illegally, you're never going to get in because you don't satisfy the legal criteria. If you come by small boat, there is a chance. So I'm not sure what this deal is doing at all.
OK, Shab Khan, let's make a note of this date. You and I totally agree. We totally agree with each other. And that, my friend, is a first. But I want to thank you for your time, as ever, for joining us today on the show. Thank you very much. Human rights lawyer Shab Khan, thank you. I'm joined in the studio by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, I know we're about to fall out because you sent me an article you wrote earlier, and you said that this could be just what Britain needs, this deal.
Yes, it could be a game changer. One of the important things about it is it's for the first time we are allowing people to claim asylum abroad. Hasn't happened before. The real problem of Calais has always been that asylum seekers can only claim asylum when they're on British soil or at a British border. We have now broken that particular mould.
It doesn't change the game and as far as reducing the numbers coming in. It just means it come in a different way.
No, it doesn't.
They might change the game and keep people like you happy, doesn't it? Well, it won't make our viewers happy because the numbers won't come down.
The numbers won't come down. The numbers stay exactly the same. Whatever happens, it's a 1 in, 1 out. So the arithmetic is...
Well, it's not. It's a minimum of 18 in to 1 out. No. If we could even send them back.
This is the Tory propaganda bit where they're arguing because the numbers are so small, 50 a week we think will be going back to France.
Well, 165 and counting today.
Exactly. So more people come in, but the actual deal is on a 1 in, 1 out basis. So on that, yes, we pay for it, so we should. The French don't get anything out of this at all.
They get £500 million a year already. They're not even stopping these blooming boats.
They've got that.
Now paying them to go back.
They've got that to patrol the beaches, but when it comes down to this particular deal, no benefit to them. Previously, everyone came over the channel. Now they will take people back, possibly 50 a week.
Possibly.
Well, we don't know.
How long's a piece of string? The Home Secretary won't even tell us.
No, she won't. So the estimate is around about 50. And no, it won't stop the boats. The boats will keep on coming. But this is a start in the right direction for putting a dent into the business model of the gangs.
I'm speechless. The gangs are still doing exactly the same.
They are today. They are rolling in.
The scheme is in operation.
Nothing's happened yet.
The silver bullet's been fired. Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed in 24 hours. You're absolutely right. This is a pilot scheme. We've got a year to go. Let's see how the gangs are operating in a year's time.
OK, Nigel, we're going to have plenty of fun in this show. I know that much for free. You're here till 6 p.m. Nigel Nelson, thank you very, very much. Now, moving on. The National Crime Agency has established a new police operation to investigate grooming gangs, investigating over 1,000 closed cases of sexual exploitation. And the new operation has been initiated after Baroness Casey called for one in her review into grooming gangs published in June, which also called for a national inquiry into the scandal. Well, let's speak now with the main man on this topic, GB News' national reporter, the award-winning Charlie Peters. Charlie, welcome to the show. So they're going to use artificial intelligence. Well, it can't be any worse than human intelligence. There's practically none on display all these years.
Well, Martin, this new operation now finally has a name, Beacon Port. That's the new National Crime Agency-led police probe across the country into closed cases of grooming gangs. This is the first phase of this inquiry, finally being launched now, almost 2 months after Baroness Casey put out that report. She made 12 recommendations, and recommendation 2 was the launch of a police inquiry and then that national sort of civilian inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. And as you've been saying, Martin, artificial intelligence will be central to this operation. It's part of the Tackling Organised Exploitation programme. There are 13 police forces that currently use their suite of apps and tools that they use to assess networks and also to translate foreign languages, go through pictures and better understand the targets that they are prosecuting and investigating. But that suite of apps and investigative data will now be shared with some of 43 police forces, every single force across the country. It's going to cost over £400,000. They say that it saves a lot of money, millions in fact, and also reduces thousands of police hours that could otherwise be used elsewhere. So it's a significant step forward. It is the first phase of this new Operation Beacon Port. And when Baroness Casey made that recommendation in June, the police operation always was first, and then there was that civilian, as I've termed it, sort of government-led commission, that inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Now, of those 13 forces that have used it, Baroness Casey, now this recommendation being put forward, over 12,500 times they've been used to support officers in their investigations, 16,000 investigator hours saved, and £20 million also. So a significant tool in the arsenal now of 43 forces across the country, Martin.
Thank you, Charlie Peters. And we can only pray that the artificial intelligence won't turn a blind eye for fear of being called racist. Charlie Peters, thank you very much. Always an absolute pleasure. Now, still to come, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has managed to double her financial black hole to an astonishing £50 billion. Now, does this mean yet more tax risers are rumbling their way towards the hard-working people of Great Britain? And also next, Prince Harry has hit back as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with a charity that he co-founded went public. The source telling GB News he is devastated, will be sparing her thoughts for the under fire Duke. That's next. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Business News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 3:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Duke of Sussex has lost his battle for control of the charity he set up in his mother's memory as a watchdog criticised him for his part in a damaging bullying row. Now, a spokesperson for Prince Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children that the charity supports. But what's next for Prince Harry now? Let's speak with GB News' royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, another right royal mess, but Harry thinks he's been cleared.
Well, it is a royal mess, and I think the battle still rages on, Martin, because both sides are still blaming each other, despite the Charity Commission, that's the UK charity watchdog, criticising Prince Harry as well as the other trustees and the chair for allowing this whole row to play out in public in the first place. So what happened? Back in 2023, there was a dispute, internal disputes about how they were going to raise money for the charity. And then Prince Harry resigned in solidarity, he says, with the Board of Trustees who had fallen out with the chairman over how to raise money. What then happened was the chairman, Dr. Sophie Chanduka, appeared on another media channel and did a separate interview with the Financial Times, accusing Prince Harry of covering up bullying and misogyny and all the rest of it. Then Prince Harry's PR team went into overdrive, lots of statements, lots of different briefings, trying to clear his name. And because it was such a mess, the Charity Commission decided to launch an investigation, and today they have found that there were serious governance failures within at the charity over delegated powers, but also, of course, and critically, the criticism about how all of this playing out in public has not only damaged the reputation of the charity, but the UK charity sector as a whole. Now, Prince Harry's spokesperson says that their report, the Charity Commission's report, falls troublingly short in many regards, primarily the fact that the consequences of the current chair's actions will not be borne by her, but by the children who rely on Senator Barlay's report. There's around 100,000 children have been helped by the charity since it launched in 2006. Dr. Sophie Chanduka says the media campaign launched by those who resigned, i.e. Prince Harry, has caused incalculable damage to the charity. Now, a source close to Harry has told me he is completely devastated by all of this, and he says it's a completely hostile takeover of his life's work. So what happens now? Well, I think when the financial reports of the charity are released at the end of this month, a source close to Harry says the proof will be in the numbers, i.e. how much has this public row and also Harry's resignation affected the money raised for the charity, but also how many donors are still giving to the charity. But unless it has Prince Harry's name on it, or a big name, is this charity just going to kind of go away into the periphery and no one's going to know about it? We'll see.
What's the opposite of the Midas touch? Prince Harry seems to have it. Thank you very much for joining us, Cameron Walker, GB News' royal correspondent Nigel Nelson. Let's get a quick blast from you. I don't remember a time. It's amazing to think back when Prince Harry was just the most popular member of the royal family, when he was in Afghanistan, when he was going to Las Vegas and being in flagrante with girls at pool parties.
I'm sure that made him popular, but certainly Afghanistan.
I think it did, because he was a relatable, everyday prince. He was in the army. You know, he was a guy. He was the royal that all the blokes wanted to be friends with, and all the girls wanted to be friendly with. And now everything he does seems to be a complete disaster.
Yeah, I think obviously they're very different roles, aren't they? He was obviously happiest in the army when he was flying helicopters. What the Charity Commission said about his charity was that he's cleared of wrongdoing. The point the Charity Commission made was that it was just complete mismanagement by everybody attached to it. They were having their boardroom battles in public. That hardly helps any fundraising. So if you can't handle things, if you can't run things, don't try.
Except he does try, and he keeps trying, and he seems to keep getting it wrong.
Well, in this case, he clearly did get it wrong. So did everybody else who was associated with the charity. That's what the Charity Commission is saying.
I guess there'll be more content for Netflix. Thank you very much, Nigel Nelson. Always a pleasure. Now, there's loads more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including the Chancellor, who has managed somehow to double her financial black hole to a whopping 50 billion quid. They promised to fix the foundations, but does this mean yet more tax rises rolling the way of hard-working people like you guys at home? But first, here's your latest news headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Making the news this hour, illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected any opposition suggestions that that would be the case. The Charity Commission has found no evidence of bullying or harassment at a charity set up by Prince Harry, but it has found that an internal dispute at Centre Ballet severely impacted the reputation of the charity. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In the US, former President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee. It's in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. And a 56-year-old man who'd been on the run for 2 years to avoid being recalled to prison for separate offences has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of an elderly dog walker. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with the news at 4.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England. Here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday. Into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M60 heading clockwise, a mishap between junctions 15 and 17 has closed one lane, causing delays for Salford motorists. In Hampshire, congestion on the A34 southbound between the junctions with the A343 and the A303 is delaying journeys by 30 minutes. In Plymouth, delays on the A38 eastbound are due to a vehicle fire near the A374 with one of 3 lanes closed. And on the trains, buses replace ScotRail services between Inverness and Kyle of Lochalsh, Wick. Avanti West Coast faces disruptions between Carlisle and Lockerbie. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 3:35 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Rachel Reeves promised to fix the foundations of our economy. However, it's now been revealed she's more than doubled the so-called £22 billion black hole, with a £50 billion tax grab now looking increasingly likely. Is Britain's economy heading for a crash? Well, I'm joined in the studio by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, we were led to believe that after 14 years of Tory chaos, of an unpredictable economic climate, crashing the economy and the Liz Truss, the adults were back in the room. I put it to you, things are worse, much worse than before. So much so we can quantifiably measure the black hole today has more than doubled since Labour got in power. They're not fixing the foundations, they're putting them down.
The economy's in trouble, and there's no question about that. And yes, we're obviously heading towards the budget in October, when there will be tax rises and probably spending cuts to go along with it. We haven't had economic growth. That things have not gone swimmingly. Economic growth was meant to get us out of this mess. It hasn't. Rachel Reeves...
Labour's taxation policy is direct to blame for that. National insurance hikes, minimum wage hikes, crippling hospitality, crippling small business, wealth grabs, driving millionaires and billionaires out of the country. Admit, it's not, you can't blame exterior circumstances, you can't blame the Tories anymore. The direct implications of Labour's fiscal policies are causing this damage themselves.
The money's got to come from somewhere, and if it doesn't come from there, where? So Rachel Reeves has promised not to raise the main taxes, which normally a Chancellor would be able to get the kind of money that he or she needs from. So no income tax rises, no VAT rises, no employee national insurance rises.
The so-called taxes on working people. It's looking increasingly likely now that she will have to do that, or go for austerity. But every time they try for austerity, like in the welfare cuts, the backbenchers won't allow it. They wouldn't allow themselves to be seen as the nasty party, the George Osbourne party with the red rosette. Never the twain shall meet. As a consequence, we're heading for the rocks.
Well, there are other ways of raising taxes without going for the big ones. Gordon Brown, for instance, would like to see a gambling tax, so a tax on gambling winnings, which he, in fact, abolished when he was Chancellor himself.
How much would that raise?
4 billion.
4 billion?
Yeah.
OK, well, that's peanuts.
Well, it's a start anyway.
11.6 billion in overseas climate aid.
That would roughly
15 billion on Ukraine. Carbon capture, 22 billion. Public sector pay rises, 47 billion over 5 years.
Let's try the next tax. She may have to look at a wealth tax. Now, a wealth tax, 2% of the 20,000 people who are worth more than £10 million in this country, that would raise 24 billion.
Have wealth taxes ever worked anywhere on the planet? Because I know the answer. It's no. 12 European nations had them. They all dropped them. Because guess what? All the millionaires cleared off. Happened in France, happened in Spain, happened in Norway, and sure as night follows day, it'll happen in Britain.
It depends how the wealth tax is introduced. For instance, if you did it this way and made it a one-off, people couldn't escape it. So there'll be no point leaving Britain because they'd have to pay the tax anyway.
So who'd come to Britain after that? Who in their right mind would come to a country where once you're in, you're on the hook for tax wherever you go on the planet?
A lot of people want to live here. A lot of super rich would like living in Britain.
Record numbers of millionaires are fleeing the country.
We don't know
Nigel
this
Nelson.
yet. No, there are some figures being put about the non-doms who were taxed. They're unofficial figures. They look a little bit dodgy until the Treasury come out with the proper figures.
You think a wealth tax would attract wealthy people to these shores?
No, it doesn't attract people as such. But what we're talking about here is the least worst option. I'm not saying this is the best option, but it's not. No taxes going up is a good option. What Rachel Reeves needs is this kind of money. Therefore, what is the least worst option to go and get it?
And so you think that imposing a tax that hasn't worked anywhere on the planet in history, a wealth tax, you think that's the answer?
Well, it actually has worked in other places. It depends how it's introduced. I can't give you a country immediately. It depends how it's introduced. I've given you one example of a wealth tax. There are plenty of other ways of doing it. You could make it a continuous tax.
There's lots of evidence in France that the fiscal revenue from taxation decreases when rich people go away. Because rich people not only pay a huge amount of tax, but they spend a load of money. They pay VAT. They keep the economy afloat. All of that goes.
What I'm talking about is, isn't it better to take it from people who can afford it than take it off the disabled, which was the mistake Rachel Reeves made before? So if you've got people who can afford it...
But they didn't even take money off disabled people because the backbenchers wouldn't allow it. That's my point. Every time there's a range of cost-cutting
Parliament wouldn't allow it.
BMPs won't stand for it.
Parliament wouldn't allow it because it was the wrong decision to make. So Rachel Reeves quite wisely went back on it. That's about 5 billion. So that gambling tax we talked about a second ago, that would cover most of that.
What about, for example, universal credit, £1.2 billion a month for foreigners?
Well, if they qualify, if they qualify for universal credit, then of course they should get it. People who come here contribute an awful lot to the British economy.
We can have this conversation in much greater. I'm being told we have to move on, but I want to continue this conversation throughout the show. Of course, we will. Nigel Nelson, thank you very much. Now, the magnificent town of Morecambe's 105-year-old football club has always been providing people with jobs, helping local businesses, and of course, offering a huge sense of community in the Lancashire town. However, it now faces the imminent prospect of being shut down due to a deepening financial crisis, with owner Jason Whittingham's failure to sell the club leading to suspension from the National League. But it's not all bad news, because the fans are doing their very best to come to the rescue. And let's go now and cross and speak to GB News' Steve Bennett, who's in Morecambe. This is fan power in action, Steve. It's beautiful. Tell us more.
Hi Martin, good afternoon. Good afternoon everyone. Yeah, the fans have been incredible during this unprecedented era for Morecambe. They are facing the real possibility of going out of existence. I'm joined by one of those fans, David Freer. David, tell us, what is going on with this football club currently?
Well, we've been for sale for over 1,000 days. The owner has been courting people to come and make him an offer. A group of Sikhs businessmen named the Punjab Warriors have put an offer in, which he's accepted over a month ago. As far as we're aware, all he has to do is sign the paperwork with his pen, and the deal is done. But for some strange reason, the owner is not playing ball at the moment. The National League have postponed our first 3 fixtures, so we've got till the 19th of August, in which they will then decide probably not to accept us in the National League unless we've got a new owners and paid all our debts. The players have not been paid. There's 200 match day staff that are not being paid currently. There's serious doubts about our ability to compete this season.
Martin was saying there, the fans, though, like yourself, have been incredible. You've come to this pop-up shop in the town on the seafront. 90% of kits have been sold out. Incredible, the impact, the following that this football club has in this community.
Yeah, it's strange, really, because obviously we were in the EFL for 18 years. We got relegated last year. We had a couple of seasons in League One. 4 years ago, last weekend, we were playing Ipswich at Portman Road in League One and managed to scab a 2-2 draw. To see us where we are now is very, very, very sad. But we've been sort of living hand to mouth for the last couple of seasons. And really, just to survive this would be a bonus for all the people locally. Businesses are threatened, pubs, clubs, bars, etc. We get loads of people coming here for weekends when we do play teams. It's going to have a devastating effect on the town.
And we've seen this before with other football clubs. We've seen it with Bury, with Macclesfield. Sheffield Wednesday currently could be in jeopardy. What would that do to this area? As you said, not just the club, but the fans, supporters, the local community.
Well, I know you've been stood here for well over an hour, and the community is rallied round, as you can see. Everybody seems to know each other, which we do. We've got sort of like 2,500 fans. We're not the biggest club in the world, but everybody's a massive fan of the club and the town. And from our point of view, for us to actually disappear off the face of the earth would be an absolute disaster, given where we've come from. 35 years ago in the Northern Premier League, before that Lancashire combination, then what was the Conference, and then the Football League. We've done nothing but go up and up and up, and to disappear would absolutely take this town off the map.
You really would. David, thank you so much for taking the time. So there you have it, Martin. Real concerning situation down here in Morecambe. The football club is the hub of the community, not just for the fans, but the staff, the players, the hoteliers, tourism in a seaside town like this. Real concerning times here.
I'm going to say, Steve Bennett, all power to the mighty Shrimps. I really hope they survive. And it's been beautiful to see other clubs, Bury FC also, saying you are not alone in the area. Football sometimes is bigger than just a sport. It's about passion. It's about the community. Thank you, Steve Bennett. Please pass on my regards to all the fans there in Morecambe. Very best. Thank you. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's a really nice idea to get the public involved, and it's our notes, isn't it? So why shouldn't the public have to say on who's on notes? And it's not just people, it's also places and anything particularly British. I mean, I'd like to see Big Ben on some notes, which is a very distinctive element of this country. Big Ben, everybody recognises Big Ben across the world. Being rather popular, so I'd have the Beatles on there. The best band that we've ever had, the best band in the world
for heaven's sake, not
be careful, you'll upset the viewers. Beatles are fantastic. But you want to something like that which recognises the talent that's been in this country. We've had Shakespeare, of course, and we've had Winston Churchill, but let's have something a bit more up to date.
David Attenborough.
A brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
No, I've just come up with that, and I thought that was quite good. And then they also encourage ideas, nature, don't they? So I thought maybe some acorns.
Why not a beaver?
A beaver is a great idea, Claire.
Two things.
And a dam.
Two things to mention on this, right? One, you still cannot pass a Scottish note in anywhere in England, and for fear it will not be accepted as legal tender, right?
But can they not?
It is legal tender.
Of course
but it is legal. Yeah, it is legal tender. Same as an Ulster note.
Yeah.
It's all sterling. It's got the word sterling written on it and whatever. But you do find a certain resistance to...
Huge resistance. And see, the minute they start to hold it up in the air, I'm like, I'm going to get you. Just don't ignite.
When I came back from Aberdeen last time, full of Scottish notes, and I went into shops, I didn't have any resistance, and I was ready for it, though. I was ready for it. I was going to say, well, take it or leave it.
It's legal tender.
It's legal tender.
Yeah, but the other thing is it not the Bank of England that wants to remove the historical characters on the notes? I mean, who actually uses cash? I prefer to use cash.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, beer lovers, get ready. Lick your lips and pull up a stool, because the Great British Beer Festival is now in full swing in Birmingham. Now, hosted by CAMRA, of course, the Campaign for Real Ale. It features over 900 real ales, cask beers, craft beers, ciders and perries. Fizzy pear cider from all over the UK, plus some international treats. Now, it's the ultimate celebration of Britain's love for a great pint, and the man with the luckiest job in Britain today is GB News' national reporter Jack Carson, who is up there in Birmingham. Jack, what on earth's going on? You got your head through, you're about to have sponges of beer thrown at you. Tell us more.
Well, we're drowning in pints here, Martin, in Birmingham. Of course, there are over 600 different types of beer here at the festival in Birmingham. It's the first time they've actually held it outside of London, and all around us there's thousands of people that have come to try that beer and just celebrate everything that is great about British beer. Here we are at the Brains stand. Now, they're brewed in Wales. They've been going since the 1800s. Gareth and Sarah join us now. You've got me a little pint of something. Gareth, tell us, what have we got here?
So this is a brand new beer for us that we've brewed, Reverend James Reserve. It's a 5.5% premium bitter. We're celebrating 140 years of the Reverend James brewing dynasty, basically. We brew Reverend James Original all the time, and this is to celebrate here, the first time it's been available to the general public, basically.
And you were saying it's gone down so well at the same time, and I have to say after a sip it's absolutely lovely. Sarah, what is great about being a brewer, but also what are maybe some of the challenges that you face at the same time?
I think what's really, really great about being a brewer at the moment is the ever-changing market. We have got so many opportunities. You know, one minute we're brewing a porter for somebody, the next minute we're doing a celebratory beer. There are so many opportunities. There are challenges. We all know the challenges. We talk about the challenges all the time. You know, we've got taxation, we've got legislation, we've got EPR, PRN, DRS in Wales. So there are lots of challenges. However, we do believe the cask is cool. It is a live beer and it should be celebrated.
Well, I think you can see that from the amount of people here. There are thousands of people over these last couple of days and into the weekend as well. There's a real appetite for coming and trying this kind of beer. But Gareth, there is a concern as well, new polling saying that 40-odd% of British people are considering cutting back on going to the pub because of financial pressures. Does that concern you?
It doesn't. I think we've always looked at that cask bitter should be a premium product. It's brewed with skill and passion throughout the whole of the UK. And actually, you can't get this product at home. So when people aren't going out as much, they do go to the pub to enjoy themselves and celebrate. They're actually spending a little bit more money and they're premiumising their choice of product. So yes, there is a challenge. There's less volume, but actually we've got the ability to make some more margin and bring some more exciting ideas to the table for the public.
And finally, what has been your favourite part of the festival? What have you enjoyed the most?
Oh, the consumers have been fantastic. They've given us some amazing feedback, and Brains Dark, 100% winner, which is fantastic.
And Gareth?
I think it's just the diverse range of people in it that have attended. Yesterday we had a trade event with people from the trade, today we were the general public. And actually, the direct feedback we've had from everybody has been absolutely fantastic. Really.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. I have to say, this, Martin, is one hell of a beer. It's absolutely glorious. Shall we have a cheers to finish? Cheers, guys. Thank you, Martin, from the Great British Beer Festival. I'm sorry you don't have a job like this today, but I'm going to enjoy myself.
Yeah, Jack down Ribben, but look, you've just been promoted to national reporter. Look at that, down in 1 mile, some beautiful to watch textbook, poetry in motion. Jack Carlson there in Birmingham. I've got to say, I love Brains beer. I was in Wales a couple of years ago, absolutely getting it down the throat, beautiful stuff. Now let's get to Nigel Nelson quickly. I'll tell you what Rachel Reeves should do, cut VAT on pubs.
And if she could, she would. There's been a number of cuts in beer tax and various alcohol taxes to help pubs. It's always the area where chancellors would like to cut because it's so popular. It depends if she's got the money.
Yeah, and we know the answer to that. There'll be no cheers for the pub industry. Thank you, Nigel Nelson. Plenty more from you throughout the rest of the show. Now, stick with us because an astonishing poll out today shows for the first time since the Brexit years, immigration officially now the #1 issue amongst British voters. Is there any wonder? Chaos in the Channel, bedlam on the beaches, and a soaring crime rate in Britain. I'll speak to the legendary pollster Sir John Curtis next with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. But first, it's time for your weather with Alex Burkill.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across Northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England, here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday, into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, the A9 at Taitcher is impacted by a road traffic incident, with both directions experiencing restrictions. Drivers should prepare for extended travel times. On the M4 eastbound at junction 48 at Hendy, resurfacing work has closed the exit slip road with diversions for assistance. Gloucester's M5 southbound between junction 13 and 14 has one lane closed due to a collision. Hampshire's A34 southbound between A343 and A303 is partially blocked from a road collision, resulting in 30-minute delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Labour's much trumpeted immigrant returns deal has got off today to a disastrous start, as it's emerged that human rights lawyers will be able to use a loophole to stop returns to France. And meanwhile, in the Channel, it's bedlam. It's business as usual for illegal immigrants as they're on their way as we speak. Once and for all, have the lunatics finally taken over our asylum system? And a bombshell poll has shown that immigration is the single most important issue to British voters. Some 56% of you say it matters most, and that's the highest figure since the post-Brexit days of December 2016. In a short moment's time, I'll ask the legendary pollster Sir John Curtis what that means for our under-fire government, who simply cannot take back control of our borders. And an astonishing 86% of Brits would not trust Ed Miliband for an advice on cutting their energy bills. Now, with punters putting more faith in their gas man or even their GP. Is this final proof that our under-fire Energy Secretary is simply spouting hot air? And today, as we mark 80 years on since the Japanese city Hiroshima became the first military target of a nuclear weapon in history, I'll speak to a journalist whose grandfather was released from a Japanese prison of war camp shortly after that historic event. And he says he would not be here today had that bomb not dropped. An emotive story, and that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, to show it's a pleasure to have your company. There's simply no escaping it now. Immigration is fair and square the #1 issue with British voters for the first time since the days of Brexit. Is there small wonder? There's bedlam on the beaches, chaos in the Channel, soaring crime. Every day now we seem to hear about sex offences allegedly against minors and women in our country. It's rocketing up to the top of the pops, and our politicians seem frozen in the headlights about what to do about this burgeoning problem. In a short while, I'll be joined by Sir John Curtis to ask him, what does this mean for the political landscape? It seems to be do or die. Stop the boats. Take control of our borders, or you'll sink into political oblivion. Get in touch usual way. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 4 o'clock. Well, more than 150 migrants have crossed the Channel illegally so far today, just a day after the government announced the signing of its migrant returns deal with France. The Border Force vessel Typhoon picked up the first group of at least 60 just after 11:30 this morning. That has now arrived at Dover. It's as illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition suggestions that that would be the case. Under terms of the agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say they're under 18. This is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to smash the gangs. Earlier today, Shadow Culture Minister Joe Robertson spoke to us here on GB News.
I think people have become very, very wary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said if it does what it says on the tin, 1 in, 1 out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because 1 in means there'll be 1 out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
Prince Harry is facing criticism from the charity Watchdog after a dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action plan for Sentebale, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry. That's despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Prince Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children the charity supports. A 56-year-old man who'd been on the run for 2 years to avoid being recalled to prison for a separate offence has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of a dog walker. Roy Barkley has been sentenced at Ipswich Crown Court to life with a minimum term of 25 years for murdering 57-year-old grandmother Anita Rose. She'd been out walking her dog in Suffolk in July last year. The judge in the case described Barkley as, quote, someone prone to dangerous outbursts at the slightest confrontation. The Prime Minister says he doesn't recognise figures that suggest the government will need to raise taxes in the autumn budget. It's after the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug now an estimated £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research says the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises as finances plunge deeper into the red. Here's what Sir Keir Starmer had to say earlier.
Some of the figures that have been put out are not figures that I recognise, but the budget won't be until later in the year, and that's why we'll have the forecast then and we'll set out our plans. What's really important is that I'm very clear about our focus, which will be on living standards and making sure that people feel better off, partly because more money is coming into their pocket in the first place through better wages, and partly because we're bearing down on costs like mortgages and other costs to everyday families.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin is meeting with US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow today. It comes as Donald Trump has set a deadline of Friday for Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. After arriving in Moscow today, Mr. Witkoff was met by Presidential Special Representative Kirill Dmitriev. Donald Trump has described that meeting as pivotal in determining whether the US goes ahead with those new sanctions. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around half an hour's time. Next, though, let's take a look at the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's how the markets are looking just after 4 o'clock. The pound will buy you $1.3310 and €1.1471. The price of gold is £2,526, 20 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,162 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now it's Groundhog Day on our beaches. Another day, another crisis in the Channel, as hundreds more immigrants have arrived into the UK following the Channel's so-called one-in, one-out deal was finally unleashed. Well, let's cross now to Dover and speak with GB News' Homeland Security editor Mark White, who is loftily perched up there, keeping a beady eye out on the waters below. Mark White, yesterday, I put it to you very perhaps uncharitably, this was a chocolate teapot of a plan, and Tachier Chocolat is the French for that, the franglais, the doughboy way. But look at this. Here are the facts. Human rights loopholes mean that people can simply avoid deportation as 'twas ever thus. They can say they're under 18 and we're powerless to deport them. The French get to cherry pick who we take in, they get to cherry pick who we send back, and British taxpayers foot the bill for all of this. Meanwhile, behind you, it's simply business as usual in the Channel, Mark White.
Yes, I mean, there has been a real change over the last decade, Martin, in the way in which governments try to enact their immigration policies because of the expertise now that the lawyers and the NGOs, the charities advocating on behalf of migrants have become. They have become so expert at being able to look for whatever loophole gives their potential client the best opportunity of being able to gain asylum and to stay in the UK. And so it is very difficult. The previous Conservative government found it very difficult indeed to, of course, get the Rwanda scheme through that was mired in legal challenges for years before they finally got the last of those legal challenges out of the way and were about to enact that particular policy until, of course, Labour came into power and then decided to scrap it. But it wasn't just Rwanda, it was the day-to-day business of the Home Office in trying to deport those who have failed the asylum process. Much of that was mired in legal challenges that again went on for years. And I think Labour is finding this out the hard way now, that any plan to try to put these migrants back across to France, however limited, and it will be very limited, with about 95% of those crossing the Channel not part of this scheme. But even that small cohort that could be part of this scheme, if they resist, if they get the legal lawyers and the NGOs on their side, then they stand a very good chance of being able to bog it down in the courts and potentially win any challenge.
And Mark White, we can see those images there that you've got for us from Dover. Military-aged men shuffling up once again that well-worn gangplank. A lot of people think they might as well install a conveyor belt. And earlier on today, Mark White, you were joined on the cliff top there. I was as surprised, perhaps as you were. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp hoved into view, out on the water, channeling, pun intended, his inner Nigel Farage, trying to stop dinghies now in opposition. If only they'd done that, Mark White, when they were in power.
Well, this is it. They had plenty of time in power as this migrant crisis in the Channel gained traction and became a real problem for the UK. And yet, whatever the Conservatives tried, it came to nothing in terms of really getting the numbers down, because we've seen really, with the odd exception of a year in 2023 where the numbers fell, that every subsequent year the numbers have just continued to grow. And Chris Philp was particularly annoyed at seeing the French escorting these small boats across the Channel and giving them life jackets. Well, in terms of escorting them across the Channel, they absolutely were doing that during the Conservatives' time in office, and I never really heard much in the way of criticism from the French for that particular tactic that the French were adopting to take these boats across the Channel then. In terms of those crossing, we had that crossing this morning, 155 crossed this morning. Not a huge number, but the conditions, Martin, are now flat calm. The last of the wind has died off. It's just a few miles an hour across the other side of the Channel, and I can tell you now that French patrols are out along the coastline, a 70-mile stretch of coast, expecting launches potentially this evening along that coastline from Dunkirk in the north down south of Boulogne.
You know, Mark Wise, I spoke with a human rights lawyer on the show earlier, Dr. Shoaib Khan. I normally argue with him. Today I agreed with him. He said to me, this deal is business as usual for human rights lawyers. His quote directly, this is business as usual. Mark White, it's an astonishing state of affairs. We seem to be going backwards.
Well, it's certainly the place that we find ourselves in now is a changed environment, really, from how asylum claims were handled just a decade or so ago, when someone who lost their asylum claim, for the most part, they were going to be removed from the country. But those lefty lawyers, as they used to be dubbed by the likes of Suella Braverman and Priti Patel during their days in office, they have become so expert at being able to work the system to ensure the best possible outcome for those that they represent. And it's a real spoke in the wheel for those government, for the Home Office of whichever government of the day happens to be trying to run our asylum system, it's very, very difficult. When the lawyers get their teeth in, they know all of the bells and whistles, the buttons to push to be able to ensure that the immigration judges, or just generally the judiciary, find often in their favour.
Mark White, I think you're exactly right. Doing God's work as ever there at Dover Docks. Thank you, Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. And now back to the studio. Meanwhile, illegal migrants crossing the channel may be able, as we said, to use human rights loopholes to avoid deportation. Under terms of the UK's agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or they claim that they are aged under 18. Of course, we find it damn difficult to prove if they're not. Well, let's discuss this now. Back in the studio with GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, you wrote an article today saying you think this deal is a game changer. How?
I think it could be a game changer. And the most important thing is that for the first time, asylum seekers will be able to make a claim for asylum on foreign soil. The paperwork and the security checks will have to be done in France for the ones that we accept over here. At the moment, you've got to break the model of everyone going to Calais. They go to Calais because under the rules, they can only claim asylum once they're on British soil or at a British border. If you can start the process where they can claim asylum from a foreign country, that could be expanded and end the need for this procession of people going to Calais.
And it won't ever, even this deal, get the numbers down. Nigel Nelson, come back to you after my next story, because it's this. Immigration has become the #1 issue among voters on the YouGov issue tracker that's been going for years. And in fact, immigration now tops the charts for the first time since around the Brexit referendum back in 2016. As you can see on your screen there, with immigration being that blue line, it topped the charts there in 2015 when thousands of asylum seekers trekked their way towards Germany. Now it's the #1 issue again. And this comes amid high levels of legal and illegal immigration, and also amid ongoing protests outside asylum seeker hotels, of course, with reports of alleged sexual assaults and incidents on British citizens. And let's speak now with the Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde, the legendary Sir John Curtis. Sir John, it's always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. History repeating itself. We're back to the days of Brexit. Immigration once again topping the poll of people's biggest concerns. I want to ask you, what does that mean for our political parties who are simply failing to get a grasp of this issue?
Well, in a sense, it's a case of history repeating itself. You'll remember, Martin, that during 2023, the then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak made Stop the Boats one of his principal aims, and the government particularly focused on the issue of not just illegal immigration across the Channel. Because remember, this is about immigration in general. It's not necessarily specifically about the boats, although YouGov polling yesterday very clearly shows, other YouGov polling out yesterday shows very clearly that so-called illegal migration is the thing that particularly upsets people. But the truth is the Conservative government, during its last months, tried to focus on this issue, particularly promoting the Rwanda scheme. And in the wake of that, concern about migration increased. It was running for quite a while in the wake of the Brexit. The Brexit referendum certainly helped to push the issue down. We got it typically running at around 20-25%, even lower unsurprisingly during the pandemic, but it was still running at around that 20-25% level at the back end of the pandemic. But by the time we got to the general election, it was already at 41%. And you're right, it's now gone up further. But the truth is we've now got another government that is claiming to have come up with ways and means of trying to reducing migrants coming across the boats. It's doing so, of course, against a backcloth where migration across the Channel is even higher than the previous record high, at least so far this year. And it simply increases the extent to which the public focus on this issue, not necessarily to the government's political advantage. I think the honest truth is that the message to anybody who is in government is that, first of all, I get the numbers down and then claim the credit. But the fatal thing to do, it's the mistake the last Conservative government made, it's the mistake this government is making, is to claim to have a scheme which is going to dramatically change what is a difficult situation and then discover you don't manage to change it. That's where Labour find themselves now, where the Conservatives were at before. But it does therefore mean that Nigel Farage can say a plague on both the houses.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about this, I believe, the rate of the increase of this as an issue, I think, will be of grave concern to Keir Starmer, because it's really rocketing up. It looks like a rocket taking off. It really is a huge issue. And I put it to you, it's not only because of successive failures to control our borders, particularly illegal immigration, but now aligned to that, we're seeing crime associated with it. People are making this connection between immigration, particularly asylum hotels, and these alleged sex assaults, rapes. It's becoming much more than about border control. It's becoming about domestic safety and crime. And I put it to you, that really, really amplifies this issue into one that, just like the government before, will be a complete deal breaker unless the Labour Party get a handle on this.
Yeah, are you sure? I mean, again, perfectly clear from other YouGov polling out yesterday. Well, who do we not want? We don't want people here who are working without a job permit. We don't want people who are coming here in order to have benefits. And of course, nobody wants criminals to be coming across to the UK. But on the other hand, Martin, let's also bear in mind that same polling says, well, do we think that the idea of having social care workers to look after our older people, we're quite keen on that. Are we keen on having doctors coming across to help us when we're ill? We're quite keen on that. Indeed, a wide range of professions, certainly skilled professions, people are for the most part keen on, of course, legal immigration. Yet, of course, the reason why immigration is high as it is, the issue of immigration is high as it isn't just what's coming across the channel. It's the fact that also governments have struggled, even in the post-Brexit world, when we supposedly were taking back control, they have found it difficult to reduce the level of legal migration as well as illegal migration. And that, it does indicate that this is a very, very difficult policy nut to crack, because at the end of the day, we are all of us getting older. We don't necessarily have enough young people to occupy our labour market and to provide the care for those of us who are older. And until we can find a way of dealing with that issue, we're always likely as a country to be taking in more people than losing them.
OK, it's John Curtis. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for your time once again for coming on GB News. Now, a quick blast back in the studio here with Nigel Nelson. Nigel, I put it to you, unless the Labour Party get a handle on this, this is going to sink them as sure as it sank the Tories.
Come the general election, it'll be the economy again, which is the
Do you really think that?
Yes, I do. It is always the economy.
That's the head in the sand and hope it goes away attitude.
No,
it doesn't mean it
goes away. I mean, immigration has been creeping up the polls for some time. Certainly at the last election, we were looking at it at third to the NHS.
This is about illegality, breaking borders, crime, safety, fairness, the cost. It's not just about people coming in and being nurses.
People are really frustrated at the moment, and I understand that. What I'm saying is that at election time, they start thinking about their pockets.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer will certainly be praying that that's the case. Thank you, Nigel Nelson. Now, coming up as we mark 80 years since the Japanese city of Hiroshima became the first military target of a nuclear weapon in history, I'll speak to a journalist with a very, very poignant and personal, moving story. And also next, an astonishing 86% of Brits wouldn't even trust Ed Miliband for advice on cutting their energy bills. Is this final proof that our under-fire Energy Secretary is simply spousing hot air? This is GB News, and I'm Martin Daubney. This is Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say.
How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now brace yourself, because it's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year, and also get a bonus $5,000 in your bank in the latest Great British Giveaway. And guess what? If you haven't even got a mortgage or you don't pay rent, fret ye not. You can still trouser £15,000. Here's all the details that you need to enter.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We're serious. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also boost that by a further £5,000. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. But don't miss out. Lines are going to close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck with that. Now, new polling today suggests that the majority of the British public wouldn't put their faith in Ed Miliband for advice on their energy bills. Now, only 15% of Brits said they would trust Mr Miliband for energy bill-cutting information. Now, yet another blow to the net zero crusade, and more adults say they'd rather seek advice from money-saving expert Martin Lewis, well, fair enough, or their heating engineer, or even their GP. What do GPs know about gas bills? Well, it seems more than Ed Miliband. Now, let's speak now with the director of Net Zero Watch, and that's Andrew Montford. Andrew, does this come as any surprise to you? I mean, the guy who's in charge of British energy policy, 86% of Brits don't trust him.
Yeah, he rather shot himself in the foot, didn't he, Martin? He said before the election that he was going to bring bills down by £300, and you know, a year later they were £300 up. I mean, they've come down a little bit since, but the suppliers are all saying that they're going to be going up again over the next 12 months. So yeah, Ed Miliband, I'm not surprised people don't trust him, because clearly, you know, he will say anything to get into power, and he will just continue with this fantasy that if we keep building wind farms, energy prices will come down. And of course, history shows that just simply isn't true. So yeah, the public are very wise not to trust Mr. Miliband.
Andrew, it's going to correct some of my figures there. Actually, it's 62% of Brits wouldn't trust Ed Miliband, but it's a minus 86% approval rating for Mr. Miliband amongst Reform voters. Perhaps no surprise there that Reform voters are the least trustful. But it is a problem. It's a problem for somebody who's clearly zealotry, is clearly emotionally involved in the net zero project. It does seem, however, the British public aren't going along for the ride.
Yeah, and it's not just a problem for Mr. Miliband, it's a problem for Sir Keir Starmer as well, because he is clearly very worried that Reform's line on the cost of living is cutting through with the public, and they are going to win votes from those Labour marginals. Now, with Mr. Miliband no longer trusted on energy and with energy bills rising, that does present a real problem if he's trying to argue that somehow Labour are going to deal with this. They don't have any money to give away. The Treasury is empty already. So what's he going to do? I mean, the easy way to bring down energy bills would be to do something about net zero. But Mr. Miliband and all his sort of the hard left, if you like, wing of the Labour Party stand foursquare in the way of doing anything about it. So, the Labour Party in reality is split on this issue, and that is going to prevent them doing anything. Reform, I think, will be laughing all the way to the polling station.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. That's the director of Net Zero Watch, Andrew Montford. Thank you. Back to studio, Nigel Nelson. This is another credibility issue, is it not? We have an energy secretary who people would rather trust their doctor. Yeah, about their energy bills. I mean, what planet?
Like you, I don't know what a doctor knows about energy.
Well, more than a Miliband. That's the point.
That's what people think. I mean, first of all, the proof will be when bills actually do go down. I mean, Andrew just mentioned the fact that they promised a £300 reduction at election time. That wasn't until the end of the next Parliament. That takes a while to come through. What Ed Miliband...
The end of the next Parliament?
Sorry, the end of this Parliament, but basically the next election. What Ed Miliband has...
honest Gov, your bills might come down by 20,
well, forget the £300 one. What Ed Miliband did last month was that insisted that all new build homes would have solar panels. Now, that will save you £500. You'll actually be able to...
Who can afford a new home?
Well, you're going to do for new builds.
Most of them might be given to asylum seekers at this rate.
Well, probably not. But you're going to do with new builds on the basis you can't ask the rest of us to start taking our roofs off and replacing them with solar panels. But it's something that would actually guarantee lower bills. Overall, we're looking at sort of 650,000 jobs in the green industry.
Where? We've heard that since the election.
We have, but
where are the jobs?
Well, they're not.
What do they pay?
They would be, well, they'd be in wind farms because we are increasing the number of wind farms, increasing the number of solar.
Wind farms have 4 or 5 geezers that service them, and one bloke in a shed watching them.
Not even a wacky great wind farm in the sea. You actually need a lot of extra people for that. That's as GB Energy gets off the ground.
Most of them aren't British, by the way. Most of those companies, most of those jobs are overseas jobs. We have to leave it there. Nigel Nelson being told once again, as soon as we get warmed up and being told we have to move on, we get on to, well, now, lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including as we mark 80 years since the Japanese city of Hiroshima became the first military target of a nuclear weapon in history. I'll speak to a journalist with a very, very poignant story. He says he wouldn't be alive if it weren't for that atom bomb. But first, it's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. The top stories just after 4:30. 155 migrants have already arrived in the UK just hours after a new one-in, one-out agreement with France. Despite that deal's launch, opposition parties claim the plan isn't working, but ministers remain confident human rights concerns won't derail it. Birmingham Airport has been shut down this afternoon after a small aircraft made an emergency landing. 3 people were treated at the scene. Footage on social media shows the plane flat on the tarmac. All flights still grounded and passengers being urged to check flight statuses. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a now estimated £50 billion black hole. Protests against the ban of Palestine Action as a terror organisation are set to continue. Organisers say they'll risk arrest this weekend with more planned demonstrations. The group's ban remains in place ahead of a November High Court hearing. And police are investigating after a man and two teenagers allegedly chased a sheep over a cliff in Cornwall, leading to its death. The community is shaken and witnesses are urged to come forward to assist investigation. Poor thing. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you at 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across Northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England. Here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday. Into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A725 Belsey Hill northbound on-slip road is closed for maintenance. Drivers should follow diversions. M4 eastbound exit at junction 48 for Hendy is closed with diversions. A collision on A34 southbound in Hampshire causes a 20-minute delay. M5 southbound in Gloucestershire between junctions 13 and 14 has one lane closed. Normal traffic resumes at 5:15. And on the trains, ScotRail buses replace services between Inverness and Kyle of Lochalsh. Disruptions also between Carlisle and Lockerbie. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 4:38. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, today marks 80 years since the Japanese city of Hiroshima, of course, became the first military target of a nuclear weapon in human history. And the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the city during World War II in an event that caused widespread destruction and, of course, a huge loss of life. But there's another side to this story, and one I confess I'd never thought of. It's utterly fascinating. I'm joined in the studio now by someone who has a very personal relation to this story, and as the Telegraph journalist David Blair, who now joins me in the studio. David, thank you so much for coming, and I read a very moving article written by yourself today in the Telegraph. Of course, you're the chief foreign affairs correspondent, about your grandfather, Dennis Bruce Soule, who was liberated because of that bomb. He survived. And because he survived, you're here today.
That's right. At the moment the bomb fell, my grandfather was a prisoner of the Japanese in Singapore. And we know that he was living on a few handfuls of rice a day. You can find photographs of other captives in that camp at that time, and you'll see that they were emaciated and starving. He had no reason to believe that he would soon be going home. In fact, he probably thought that he was going to be there for months or maybe years to come. And then, suddenly, today, 3,000 miles away in Hiroshima, everything changed. And because of that bomb, my grandfather was home by Christmas. And there were tens of thousands of other people in the same position.
And it says in the article, of course, 70,000 Japanese people lost their lives in what is one of the most contentious moments in all of the history of war. But, you know, I'm obsessed with World War II. I've watched The World at War 4 times in its entirety. I've got volumes and volumes of books. I'd never thought about this. It's fascinating. The survivors who were liberated went on to have descendants, such as yourself. You're living proof, sat here right now,
Yes,
of the continuum of life after such a tragic event.
That's true. And because my grandfather was home by Christmas 1945, he had a daughter, my mother, in December 1946. In fact, he had twin daughters. And because of that, I'm here today. And I have a daughter myself now. So it's extraordinary that I can trace my existence back to that horror in 1945. And there will be millions of people like me who are the descendants of prisoners who were released as a result of Japan's surrender on August the 15th, 1945. There'll be millions of us all across the world. And today I've been in touch with some of them who've been contacting the Daily Telegraph. And all of us can trace our existence back to that extraordinary event.
We've got the wonderful picture on the screen there. That's your grandfather with
There he
your
is.
father. That's your dad.
No, that's my uncle.
Beg your pardon, that's your uncle there. But this is the bouncing baby, and all of this human life, of course, continued after the liberation. I understand he was down to 6.5 stones when he was released. And we've seen so many of those terrible, terrible pictures, the inhumane circumstances that many of those prisoners were kept under. And I believe you say in your article as many as 37,500 British and Commonwealth troops may have been released, liberated, and the descendants, as you say now, could number in the millions. But of course, does this come sometimes to you as something of a double-edged sword? You're alive, but you're alive because of this hugely traumatic and terrible event in human history.
Yes, it's a terrible thing, and I don't really like to dwell too much on exactly what happened on this day 80 years ago, because it was so horrific, and it is. You can quantify, sadly, tragically, the number of people who were killed on this day 80 years ago. But you can't quantify the number of people who are only alive today because that happened. And I think the ordeal of the prisoners who were being held by Japan all across Asia, not just my grandfather in Singapore, but in many countries across Asia, the ordeal that they were suffering and which they were liberated from should be weighed in the moral balance when you're judging whether it was the right thing to do or not.
I think you're exactly right. And there's a reason, whatever your philosophical viewpoint of nuclear Armageddon, of nuclear bombs, it was done for a reason, to try and end that precise suffering. It's one of the greatest decisions made probably in human history, the gravitas of it. Looking at the world we live in now, we're in a time of uncertainty. Do you think we still need nuclear bombs as that ultimate deterrent to make sure we can't go through that degree of suffering again?
Alas, tragically, I think we do. If we were to relinquish our own deterrent today, then there's only one person who would benefit, and that's Vladimir Putin, and he would feel free to do whatever he wished. So it's an awful, terrible necessity.
Tell me about some of the happy stuff about your grandfather, Dennis Bruce Soul. I understand he lived until he was 91. He had a grand old life after all that suffering he went through. How do you remember him?
I remember him very well because he died as recently as 1997.
Wow.
I was 24 years old when he died, so I had known him quite well. And it's certainly true. He had a very full life. He had 3 children. He had 7 grandchildren. He had a successful career at HSBC, as it is now. But like many people from his generation, he didn't talk very much about his wartime experiences. So I never learned very much from him about what he had been through. And I can't honestly remember him offering an opinion on the morality of the atom bomb. Perhaps for him it was just too close a subject to go into.
You know, David Blair, I'm kind of looking at those pictures now of your relatives, and I'm getting tearful. You know, just to think about, you know, the fragility of life. You know, I just hadn't thought about this domino effect.
Yes.
Of something so contentious, and yet here you are.
Yes, here I am. And you know, you showed a picture earlier of my uncle when he was just a few months old. You know, in 1942, my grandfather had to put him and my grandmother on one of the last ships out of Singapore. And it was such a desperate evacuation. It really was women and children only. And off they went. And he would never have been able to know that he would ever see them again. But he did, because he was home by Christmas 1945.
You know, David Blair, what an astonishing story of human survival. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio today and sharing that. Thank you very, very much. Absolutely incredible. Thank you. Now, still to come, the Chancellor has managed to double her financial black hole now from 22 billion to 50 billion. Does this mean that more tax rises are inevitably on the way for hard-working people like you? But before that, if you're in search of some holiday sun, and here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is the small boat crossing that everyone can cheer on, going from Fulham all the way back to HMS President in the city of London. It's going very well. I've walked 10 miles this morning with some Armed Forces veterans, their families, campaigners. GB News is raising money for SAFA and other Armed Forces charities as part of that Armed Forces Day celebration. Amazing viewers and listeners have raised £2,000 already. And after that gruelling 10-miler, which I have to say was done at quite a gentle pace, are now being treated to this luxurious return back to the starting point on board an HMS, a Royal Navy vessel. This is President 01. This is a training vessel that they use for reservists and also Royal Navy sailors as they make use of the Thames. We've had some great sights already. As we've been going back, we've seen plenty of people taking part in that SAFA 13 Bridges March, waving down on us. I think they were probably slightly jealous that they're still working away and we're enjoying the hospitality of the Royal Navy. But over 1,200 people taking part today, Dawn. Over 150 of them military reservists like myself and Will Mayrick, the producer for today's programme, doing excellent work. He's an RAF officer, in fact, I have to call him sir, which can get very embarrassing. But we're doing great work today, I think, really showcasing the armed forces. It's been amazing to speak to so many veterans, their families, and also many serving personnel on this March day as well. And we're just coming under, there's Vauxhall Bridge there, we've got MI6 to the right, very exciting. Always a beautiful sight, that iconic building. And there's going to be a lot of people still on the march as we go past, we accept. We just had some waves from the bridge earlier.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, Rachel Reeves promised to fix the foundations of the British economy. However, it's now been revealed that she's more than doubled the so-called £22 billion black hole, and with a £50 billion tax grab looking increasingly likely, is Britain's economy heading for a crash? Well, let's speak now with the Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, Vicky Price. Vicky, welcome to the show. They promised to fix the foundations. It's starting to look like the foundations are crumbling.
Well, yes, there is obviously a problem in terms of growth. We haven't had the growth that the Chancellor had expected to see happen or continue, if you like, from before the election. It looked like, certainly in the first half of 2024, we were doing rather well. And of course, since then, we have flatlined, except for a brief period in the first 3 months of the year. We've then seen, of course, declines in GDP for 2 months after that. So spring doesn't look too good when the figures all come out. So lower growth, without any doubt. And that, of course, means fewer receipts and more spending necessarily. And in addition, of course, we've had problems in terms of restraining some of the spending that the government would like to see happen, such as on welfare, because there have been lots of U-turns. So the two together, and also interest rates staying high and causing an awful lot of anguish for the Treasury, because servicing the debt is so ridiculously expensive right now. It's about 100 billion we have to pay yearly for it. With interest rates staying so high, that has been an added problem. So yes, if you add it all together, what you end up with is a worse scenario on the fiscal front than perhaps had been hoped for.
OK, so Vicky Price, unless I go to Jeremy Corbyn's allotment and dig up a magic money tree, there's two things to do: raise taxes or make cuts. Now, every time they try and make cuts, there's a backbench rebellion. So therefore, the most likely way out of this mess is tax rises. Do you think that's a likelihood now, an increasingly likelihood looking forward?
I think, as you rightly say, there isn't really much scope for cutting spending. Yes, they're talking about improving public services in the sense of making them more efficient and more productive, and maybe cutting the civil service, but that isn't really going to lead to anything very much in terms of saving loads of money. So they are going to have to raise taxes in all probability. They've been hinting at it anyway. The question is what? And although they have said they're not going to increase income tax, in reality, they are probably going to freeze income tax thresholds for longer than they had anticipated. So they will be getting a few tens of billions from that over a couple of years towards the end of Parliament. So that will help a little bit. But there are concerns that they may be looking at some VAT changes, not necessarily on the normal stuff that we buy, maybe on some types of spending, such as there's been hinted, private healthcare, and other areas where they could perhaps incrementally, achieve a bit of an increase in taxes and also in revenue.
OK, Vicky Price, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Quick blast from you, Nigel Nelson. They said they'd fix the foundations. They've blown the foundations to smithereens.
Well, they haven't blown it. What we haven't had, as Vicky just said, we haven't had the economic growth that was expected. The economy is in a mess. Rachel Reeves needs extra money.
A miracle.
And, well, possibly a miracle too. But she needs extra money. It's a question of how she's going to raise it without breaking any of her manifesto promises.
So what's the answer? What's that silver bullet? Because even every economic expert I go on can't see any way out of it apart from inevitable tax hikes.
I think there will be tax hikes. There probably will be some spending cuts if you can find a place to do that. Some tax hikes that are possible. They're looking at a wealth tax. They're looking at a gambling tax. That's a Gordon Brown recommendation.
This is peanuts.
It would raise $4 billion, so it would cover pretty much what they lost from not taking the money off the disabled.
$4 billion is a quarter of the climate change pledge to carbon carbon capture, it wouldn't even scratch the surface. Nigel Nelson, we can continue this conversation in the next hour. Plenty more to come in that next hour, including all the latest. It's business as usual in the Channel. Bedlam on the beaches. Boats are rolling in on their way despite that much trumpeted one-in, one-out deal. But first, here is your weather with Alex Burkill.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England. Here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy, quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount. And then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday, into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Temporary traffic lights are on the A9 at Thatcher due to emergency roadworks. Resurfacing on the M4 eastbound exit slip at junction 48 in Hendy requires diversions. In Northamptonshire, the A14 westbound between junction 1 Welford and the M1 Catthorpe interchange is reduced to one lane due to a broken down vehicle. In Kent, there's a road traffic collision on the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 3 and junction 2 causing delays. And on the trains, buses replace trains between Inverness and Kyle of Lochalsh, and Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Carlisle and Lockerbie. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Labour's much trumpeted migrant returns deal has got off to a disastrous start today as it's emerged that human rights lawyers will be able to use, of course, loopholes to stop returns to France. Meanwhile, in the Channel, it's business as usual. Bedlam for illegal immigrants as they are on their way as we speak, with fresh boats rolling across the Channel. Once and for all, have the lunatics finally taken over our asylum system? Now, a bombshell poll out today has shown that immigration is once again the single most important issue to British voters. Some 56% of you say it matters the most to them. And that's the highest figure since the post-Brexit days of December 2016. And that means our under-fire government. What does that mean? And Rachel Reeves promised to fix the foundations of our economy, but it's been revealed today that she's more than doubled the £22 billion black hole. Now, with the £50 billion tax grab looking increasingly likely, is Britain's economy heading for a crash? And an astonishing 86% of Brits would not trust Ed Miliband for advice on cutting their energy bills. Now, with punters putting more faith in their gas man and even their doctors, is this final proof that our under-fire Energy Secretary is simply spouting hot air. And that's all coming up in your next hour. It's Groundhog Day in the Channel. The boats are simply rolling in. One has already landed ashore at Dover and others are on their way on the next tide over from France. What's the point of this one in, one out deal if we're getting hundreds in on a single day and no evidence of any going out? Worse than that, we hear today that human rights lawyers, of course, licking their lips at the prospect. No chance of returning people if they claim that they're under persecution threat or if they're under 18. And of course, the French can still cherry pick who they get back and they can stop those coming into their country altogether. Meanwhile, the British taxpayer pays all of the transportation costs. Is this the worst immigration deal in history? That's the conversation we'll analyse over this next hour. Get in touch, gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good evening to you just after 5 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, more than 150 migrants have crossed the Channel today, just a day after the UK and France signed a new returns deal. Border Force vessels Typhoon and Ranger picked up multiple groups, with dozens arriving in Dover by midday. But questions are already being raised over a potential loophole in the agreement, which could allow some to avoid deportation by claiming human rights protections or saying they're under 18 years old. Dame Angela Eagle has dismissed those loophole concerns, but critics warn it could derail efforts to smash the gangs. Here's what Shadow Culture Minister Joe Robinson had to say to us earlier today.
I think people have become very, very weary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, if it does what it says in the on the tin, 1 in, 1 out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because 1 in means there'll be 1 out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
Birmingham Airport has suspended all flights after a small aircraft made an emergency landing on the runway earlier. That light plane came down just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. 3 people on board, 1 treated for minor injuries. All, though, have been discharged at the scene. Footage showed the aircraft lying flat on the tarmac as emergency crews, including police, paramedics and a specialist response team, rushed in. Passengers due to fly from Birmingham Airport are now being urged to check their flight status. Disruption is expected throughout the day. The Prime Minister says he doesn't recognise claims that Labour will need to raise taxes this autumn. It follows a stark warning to Chancellor Rachel Reeves that she may have to break her promise to avoid tax hikes, as a £50 billion black hole has opened up in the public finances. The National Institute of Economic and Social Research says Labour is now set to miss its own targets and spending plans. It's fuelling speculation of new tax rises. Starmer and Reeves insist they're focused, though, on delivering growth, not raising taxes.
Some of the figures that have been put out are not figures that I recognise, but the budget won't be until later in the year, and that's why we'll have the forecast then, and we'll set out our plans. What's really important is that I'm very clear about our focus, which will be on living standards and making sure that people feel better off, partly because more money is coming into their pocket in the first place through better wages, and partly because we're bearing down on costs like mortgages and other costs to everyday families.
Well, I just want to bring you a breaking line. We're hearing from the Reuters news agency of casualties being reported in what is being described as an active shooter incident in the United States at Fort Stewart Army Base, that is in Georgia. According to a Facebook post issued by the Army Base, the commander issuing a complete lockdown in the area, calling on all personnel and people in the area to stay inside, close and lock all windows and doors. We're hearing also, as I say, of casualties reported in that active shooter incident. It is one of the significant army bases in Florida, so we'll keep across any developments as law enforcement are reportedly now on the scene. The situation at this stage developing and ongoing. Here in the UK, the King has paid tribute to the RAF and their families during a visit to Scotland's main airbase today. He watched a parade, met families of those serving abroad and spoke of his own ties to the Lossiemouth base, recalling training nearby. Touring state-of-the-art Poisden aircraft, His Majesty also hailed the squadron's role in protecting UK airspace and supporting NATO allies. And let's take you live to scenes in Hawaii as Kilaueo's volcano is erupting in spectacular style once again, with lava jets soaring over 1,000 feet into the air. It's the second eruption of the Hawaiian volcano in just a few months, with flows from both the north and south vents lighting up the crater. Lava first seen breaking out through the ground around 1 o'clock this morning local time, followed by hours of fountaining, spattering and gas plumes. The US Geological Survey says the eruption has lasted so far 8 hours, warning that volcanic gases do remain a major hazard downwind. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you shortly. Now, though, let's get straight back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. It's Groundhog Day in the Channel once again. Another day, another crisis in the Channel, as hundreds more immigrants have arrived into the UK today following that so-called silver bullet Channel 1 in, 1 out deal that was announced just yesterday. And meanwhile, these same illegal immigrants may be able to use a now so-called human rights loophole to avoid deportation, because under terms of the UK's agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or claim that they are aged under 18. You couldn't make it up, and let's now speak with the international security and border control expert, Henry Bolton. Henry, an absolute pleasure to have your company. I've been calling this deal un terrier chocolat. That's the French for a chocolate teapot. I'll explain why I think it is a terrible deal for Britain. First of all, it's not 1 in, 1 out. It's about 18 in minimum and 1 out. The one we can send out could say no. They could claim they're under 18. We don't have no way of proving that. And France can then cherry pick who they take back. They won't take back anybody they deem to be particularly dangerous. Isn't that the point? They're in control of who we're forced to take back from France, and the British taxpayer pays for all of the transport one way or the other. I put it to you, this is a terrible deal for Britain. What say you?
I say it's an appallingly drafted agreement, that the British side of it has, once again, the government has demonstrated that it's unable to negotiate sensibly, and it doesn't have a realistic grasp of what the situation is. Let's be fair, there's one and only one benefit from this agreement, as I see it. It is a test, a very, very small, virtually insignificant test, but a test nonetheless, of the developing processes and procedures for returns with the French, which at some point in the future might be useful experience for us to base something a bit more substantial on. Let's see. But, there are so many problems with this. First of all, I mean, today is the 6th of August, which, as I understand it, is the first day that, that this starts to apply. The UK then has 14 days to interview people who come across the channel, assess whether or not they want to make an asylum claim, which we can assume that they will, whether that asylum claim is valid or not, whether they constitute a threat to public security or anybody else's security, and then they've got to make that an application to the French within 14 days of today, for the first ones, within 14 days of today, and tell the French precisely what checks that have been made and carried out in order to ensure that these people constitute no security threat whatsoever to France. So, even in that process, so given the inability of the Home Office to process claims effectively and robustly, even given months, their inability to make decisions with regards to individual migrants, the inability of them to successfully, let alone apply or try to deport these people, but even to deal with the appeals against those. I mean, the idea that this is going to be effective is for the birds. Then there's another side to this as well, Martin, just to demonstrate how appalling a drafted agreement this is. We don't talk so much about the people who might come here. If we do send somebody back, who's going to come here? Well, to come back here, you have to fill out a form online. You can only fill out that form if you're supposed to only fill out that form if you are in France. It'd be interesting to know how the British government is going to know whether that form has been filled out in France or not. But you are not permitted to be allowed in France. You should have no right to be in France in the first place to come here. So those two things are incompatible in themselves. The whole thing is a shambles. Even if it were to work, Martin, and you implied this in your lead-in, even if it were to work, the numbers involved are so insignificant that they will defy, both in deterrent value and in terms of the reduction of in channel crossings, they will be so insignificant that they will defy any form of measurement. So the whole thing is just window dressing from the government. The other thing, finally, in this is that Yvette Cooper, I think yesterday or the day before, felt it necessary to respond to an ex-post put out by the French Interior Minister, who was saying that this is basically done in partnership with the European Union to prevent or try to reduce deaths in the Channel. Yvette Cooper felt it necessary to come in and said, no, this is all about smashing the gangs. The two are coming from different positions on this. So, no, I mean, not a good deal.
Yeah, I'm getting that. I'm getting that loud and clear. Henry Bolton, thank you very much for joining us on the show. It's always an absolute pleasure. Quick blast from Nigel Nelson back in the studio for a bit of balance there. Nigel Nelson, you've wrote an article today, in fact it's on GBNews.com, saying you think this is a game changer. How is it?
I think it could be a game changer, as Henry just pointed out, that the application for coming here will be made in France. That makes it the first time that has happened. Under the current rules, you can only claim asylum once you're in Britain or at the British border. This opens up the possibility.
So more people will apply. Certainly, it won't bring the numbers down.
Well, it's not about numbers. It's about having. No, it isn't. One in, one out. Clearly, the arithmetic there.
But it isn't one in, one out.
The numbers won't change.
It isn't one in, one out. Well, it's going to be a tiny amount going back over the channel. The French get to cherry pick who it is.
Well, of course they do. They have to decide whether the person they're taking back is a security threat to them.
Yeah, so that means all the bad apples stay on our side.
We're doing the same security check on the people that we will bring over here. The difference is they will come by safe routes rather than crossing the channel in a small boat.
So all the bad eggs that make it here illegally we have to keep, and we can't send any of them back to France. I put it to you, it's completely one-sided. We have to leave it there, move on to our next story, Nigel Nelson, and you're not going to get involved in this one too, because it's about Brexit. And a leaked EU reset proposal could see the UK effectively re-enter the single market and the customs union. Now, Brussels would once again set Britain's trade, food, farming and environmental rules, and even settle disputes through its own court. Could this be a Brexit reverse? Now, this comes as new data suggests that only 29% of people would now back Brexit. Well, we didn't even get one, did we? Is this a Brexit backtrack? Well, I'm joined now in the studio by the economist and the fellow at the Centre for Brexit Policy, Catherine McBride. Catherine, welcome to the show. You wrote an excellent article today in The Times, and the headline is very, very clear. You think that this is this EU reset takes us headfirst into the jaws of defeat?
Yes, 100%. And I just want to correct you, it wasn't leaked. It was published. It's on the EU's website. They are not hiding this. This is out there. It's our government and our media, apart from GB News, who are just not mentioning it.
So
They're hoping it will go away.
Tell us about why it's a terrible deal.
Well, first of all, we're going to allow the EU to make all of our rules on animal welfare, animal health, plant health. Our food standards will be made in the EU. Our food marketing standards will be made in the EU. Our organic standards will be made in the EU. So everything that comes into this country, whether we make it here, even if we never exported food to the EU, if there's some guy making, cheese that just sold completely in the UK, he's going to have to make it to EU standards, and they have to update. They can update their standards whenever they like, and we have to update ours automatically.
Catherine, does this prove that not only did we never leave really the orbit of Brussels, but we're being pulled inexorably back towards it by Keir Starmer's regime?
Without a doubt, this is definitely taking us back into a type of customs union and single market, because it's not just food, it's also on anything that has a carbon emissions, because we're also going to sign up to their carbon emissions trading scheme and their CBAM, that's the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which is a type of tariff that they put on any goods that come in from other countries.
And are we being locked into these deals, perhaps beyond the lifetime of even this government? Are we locked in for decades to come?
Well, I sincerely hope not, because that was a premise of the UK government, is that one government cannot tie another government's hands. But the EU is incredibly good at preventing people from moving. And I know our big manufacturers always hate changing their rules. So if they change their rules now to fit in with the EU, in 5 years' time, they won't want to change them back again. So you do get stuck in the EU without, as we know.
Catherine McBride, a lot of cynics were saying we won't get a second referendum. They wouldn't dare to give us that because they might get the wrong result again. But is this something worse? Is this just a ratchet, click, 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 death by 1,000 paper cuts back towards Brussels?
It is definitely that. And also we will be paying the money for this. So not only...
How much? We don't even know, do we?
We don't know. They're going to set the price. They're going to adjudicate it. We'll be under the Court of European Justice, and so they'll set the rules. They'll be the judge as to whether we're complying with the rules. They will set the fines for if we don't comply. They have also demanded that they have the ability to actually, if we're breaking this agreement, they can fine us from another agreement. They can change the TCA, the present trading rules we have with the EU. The whole thing is in their interest.
Okay,
there is not one thing in this agreement that would be good for the UK.
Okay, Catherine McBride, thank you very much. Nigel Nelson, let's get you in. Isn't this proof that all along the People's Vote champion Keir Starmer wanted a second referendum? This slow realignment with Brussels proves that Sir Keir Starmer remains a Remainer.
No, we're not going back into Europe. Brexit is done and dusted. What this is a sensible, grown-up way of having relations with Europe.
Closer back to Brussels.
It's a deal. It's a deal. Our food exporters are cheering it. They were subject to a whole load of checks that they had to do to try and export food to Europe. As a result, we lost 34% of our exports since 2019.
Is that true, Catherine?
No, it's not true. It's not true. We export very, very little food to the EU. We never have. We're only 60% self-sufficient in food. We import 40% of the food we consume right now. We import 1,000% more fruit, vegetables, products made with fruit and vegetables and products made with meat and fish from the EU than we export to it.
But we still export some food there. That's the point I'm making.
It's very tiny, and the idea that this is to benefit the tiny amount of people who export to Europe is rubbish. We import food from Europe. This is tying us into EU food, so we cannot import it from America, Australia, New Zealand, or other countries that are more efficient producers than Europe.
Well, it won't tie us to foreign trade deals, because that was the whole point of leaving in the first place. So we can still do our trade deal with America, with India, and so on.
No, because all of those goods will have to comply with EU rules.
Yeah, with EU rules, but they won't comply with the customs union relating to the EU.
Yeah, no, we are joining the EU's customs union, or their union is enveloping us, whether we like it or not.
But that would mean we couldn't do those international trade deals that we're doing. Well, we've done them. Well, so what happens to the American trade deal, the Indian trade deal?
But they were done before this reset.
They can export it. Well, see, they can export as goods, but when they get here, we will have to charge them the EU CBAM if it's an industrial good from India. If it's a good that's come in from Australia, we will have to, if it doesn't comply with EU rules, because Australia does not have an agreement with the EU, we won't be able to let it land.
OK, Catherine McBride, Nigel Nelson, here we are, still banging on about Brexit all of these years later. Don't you just love it? Thank you very much to both of you. Now, here's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year, and you get a bonus £5,000 in your bank into the bargain in our latest Great British Giveaway. And guess what? If you haven't got a mortgage or you don't even pay rent, fret ye not. There's still 15 grand up for grabs, and here's how you could bag it.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has managed to double the size of her financial black hole to 50 billion quid. Now, does this mean that inevitably tax rises are creeping towards the hard-working British taxpayer, and also civil servants throwing sickies en masse? They're likely in protest. They're being finally forced to go back into the office, break out the world's smallest violin. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
At
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're
the failure is.
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Whitehall is on track to report its highest ever staff sickness level in history. It's surpassing the previous peak of 8.3 days a year lost per employee in 2023. Figures published by the ONS show that on average, public sector sickness rates are almost 50% higher than those in the private sector. Well, the civil service simply sick of working. Well, let's speak now with Baroness Claire Fox. Baroness Fox, always a delight to have your company. We've got a problem. We've got a serious problem with civil service sickies. It's going through the roof, and I put it to you, they're getting very used to having their lattes and their pyjamas. Baroness Claire Fox, you're either frozen in action or we've lost you. We've lost her. Right, let's talk about this with Nigel Nelson. Nigel, you're the safety net to save the day. Here's the point. 4 million working days are lost per year now in sickness in the civil service, and it's getting worse. It's gone up by 10% in some departments. This report today concludes the clear link. They're being told to get back to work. They're being told to get back to their desks. They don't want to do that. They got very used to a life of lattes and pyjamas, and when they're told to go in, they're phoning in sick. Civil service is sick itself.
Well, certainly that civil servants shouldn't have such a high record of sickness compared to the private sector.
But they have.
There's no excuse for that. When it comes from working from home, it depends what job you do. So if you're doing a job which say on a computer all day, you're processing DVLA licenses or whatever, you can do that job as easily from home as you could do from the office, and you save the commute in doing it. So it makes sense for certain jobs to allow people to work from home. It makes sense to let them work flexibly. If the civil service are not doing that because various ministers have said, no, you must be back at your desk, that could be causing some of the problem. And what they should do is be realistic about how the job operates.
By the way, people trying to get a driving test out there, people trying to get their driving licence replaced out there, might say that the DVLA isn't purring along like a kitten, as you profess there, Nigel Nelson. But back to the main point. We've got a problem with sickness. I put it to you, the only way to solve this is with the UK-style Doge. We need a mass clear-out of a lot of these non-jobs, these DEI jobs, the middle management jobs. Blast it all with a water cannon, make people feel that they could be next to actually get them back on their haunches again. They're getting used to cruising along, and we don't fix the economy by cruising along.
No, we don't. But I don't think the answer is then to start sacking people just for the sake of
jobs redundant.
No, I mean, I think that I've been watching how reforms Doge works on local councils, and I'm not sure it's hugely successful. For a start, they haven't found the savings that they thought they would. The civil service are essential just to keep the country running, ticking over. There may be the odd job that you can get rid of, that's fine, but the idea of mass redundancy to make people frightened is no way to run an organisation.
Why not? There are millions and millions and millions. I've done FOIs myself. We're splurging millions of pounds on diversity jobs, on climate change jobs in the NHS. We don't need them. We could do without them. We could save the money and make the people who feel they have got a job, they'll actually need to get their trotters back to a desk.
Well, we can always argue about diversity jobs. The whole point of those is to get people across the threshold, to give them a chance. So, of all places, the civil service should be doing that. When it comes to climate jobs, we are heading towards net zero. I know you don't like it, but that's what Ed Miliband is doing. We have to get to net zero by 2050.
The future government might change that, and all those jobs will be superfluous to requirements. That's my point.
If the government changes and there is a democratic vote which says we don't want net zero, we'll lose net zero. That would be a pity, but at the moment that is government policy for the next 4 years.
Why do you think there is this huge discrepancy between people phoning in sick in the public sector and in the private sector? I put it to you, they're not working hard enough.
Well, the answer is I don't know why there is a discrepancy. I mean, you suggested it was working from home is to blame, and they don't like being told to go back to the office. If that is the case, then obviously you need a negotiation to find out what is the best working practice for those individuals.
Negotiate with somebody to say, look...
Of course you negotiate.
You're being asked to get back into the office and they're saying, oh, it's too stressful, I'm phoning in sick.
No, the private sector negotiates. You have unions for the purpose.
You sack them. If they don't do the job, it's practically impossible to get fired from the civil service. That's the point.
No.
People are swinging the leg.
That used to be the case. Not any longer. They have been getting rid of a lot of jobs in the civil service, and it's no longer a safe berth that it used to be.
Know about that. Nigel Nelson, thank you very much. We'll agree to disagree once again. Baroness Claire Fox there, we couldn't get her up, but we'll have her again on the show sometime. Loads more still to come to you now, 6 o'clock, including the Chancellor, who has managed to more than double her financial black hole to 50 billion quid. Does that inevitably mean more tax rises are incoming? Plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show, but for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, first stay safe. And now here's your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Emergency roadworks on the A9 at Taitcher have temporary traffic lights causing extended journey times until December 31st, 2025 at 6 in the morning. The M4 eastbound at junction 48 Hendy has a closed exit slip road with diversions due to resurfacing. In Northumberland, the A69 westbound is closed between the A6079 and the A686. In Kent, the M25 anti-clockwise has 10-minute delays with one lane closed near junction 3 and 2. And on the trains, ScotRail buses replace services between Inverness and Kyle of Lockhalsh. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Very good evening, Martin, back with you next. First, though, a look at the headlines. 155 migrants have arrived in the UK just hours after a new one-in, one-out deal with France came into force. Despite that deal's launch, opposition parties claim the plan isn't working, but ministers remain confident that human rights concerns won't derail it. Birmingham Airport has been shut down after a small aircraft made an emergency landing. 3 people were treated at the scene. Footage on social media showed the plane flat on the tarmac. All flights are grounded. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes this autumn to plug now an estimated £50 billion black hole. Protests against the ban of Palestine Action as a terror organisation are set to continue. Organisers say they'll risk arrest with planned demonstrations this Saturday. The group's ban remains in place ahead of a November High Court hearing. And a story our director Jane is deeply passionate about. Police are investigating after a man and 2 teens allegedly chased a sheep over a cliff in Cornwall, leading to its death. The community is shaken, as too is Jane, our director, and witnesses are urged to come forward to assist the investigation. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back at 6.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England, here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday. Into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:38. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Rachel Reeves promised to fix the foundations of our economy. However, it's now been revealed that she's more than doubled the so-called £22 billion black hole, with a £50 billion tax grab looking now increasingly likely. Is Britain's economy heading for a crash? Well, let's speak now with the Professor of Economics and Public Policy at King's College London, Jonathan Porters. Jonathan, always a pleasure to have your company. Rachel Reeves promised to fix the foundations, but she's gone and blown the blooming doors off, mate.
Well, I think we haven't learned anything particularly new today. The economy hasn't fallen off a cliff, despite some of the predictions that have been made on this show. Indeed, I was here, I think, a few months ago when we heard similar apocalyptic predictions, and funny enough, we're all still here. Similarly, this is one estimate from one think tank. It happens to be a very respectable think tank. Indeed, I used to run it. So I'm certainly not going to diss it. But on the other hand, you can get different numbers from different people. And frankly, it is the Office of Budget Responsibility that does the official forecasts, and they are only just beginning their forecasts. So whatever the number is, it will be somewhat different from this one. But the bigger picture is, you're right, we are going to need some increases in taxes to meet Reeves's fiscal rule. She inherited an unsustainable position, and the position is still unsustainable, and she's going to need to do more. That is quite correct.
So where do we think those tax rises are going to come? Because we were promised nothing on VAT. We were promised no national insurance hikes for employees. We were promised no VAT hikes. What's left?
One obvious thing is that she could extend the freeze that the Tories introduced on the threshold at which people pay income tax.
Well, that's a tax on working people, because more people become high-rate taxpayers. That is a tax on working people. Dress it up how you like. That's a sting.
It's certainly a tax on working people. It's an extension of the tax on working people which the Conservatives introduced, and which is already in the numbers, and which is already there until 2028. But you're right, it's paying more tax than we would otherwise would have. Other things, I imagine there are going to be some changes to the tax regime for savings and pensions. So possibly changes to the cash ISA rules, which I think probably broadly makes sense, because it would give people more of an incentive to invest in companies rather than in cash ISAs.
Jonathan Porters, is the tempo, if you like, the tattoo of this government quite simple? It's take from the haves and dare not take from the have-nots. And what I mean by that is there is no austerity of any form. In fact, any time there's any whiff of a cut to things like those on benefits, there's a backbench rebellion. They can't make cuts. And so it's people with money, particularly pensioners, who are always the target of this government.
Well, I think it's true that middle and well-income pensioners have done very well over the 15 years, right? Pensioner poverty, there are still poor pensioners, but pensioner poverty has come down by a lot. And there are a lot of relatively well-off people in later life. So you're right. So people like me, both now and when I retire, which hopefully won't be too long, are going to have to pay significantly more, which I think is a sensible rebalancing of a system which has actually done very well for people like me over the past 30 years. And it's not a bad idea to think that maybe we should have to pay some of that back.
OK, Jonathan Porters, you're a rarity on this show, somebody who's happy to pay more tax. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
I think it's necessary.
OK, well, at least you're a loyal left-winger till the end. Thank you very much, Jonathan Porters. Pleasure to have you on the show. Sincerely is. Now moving on to football. The town of Morecambe's 105-year-old football club has always been providing people with jobs, helping local businesses and, of course, offering a sense of community in the Lancashire town. However, it faces the imminent prospect of being shut down due to a deepening financial crisis enveloping the club, with the owner, Jason Whittingham's failure to sell it, leading to suspension from the National League. But let's go to Morecambe now and speak with GB News' reporter, Steve Bennett. Steve, you're there, the home of the Shrimps, and the locals are rallying around. They're queuing 400 long to buy replica shirts, doing their bit to try and save the day.
That's right. Hello, Martin. Hello, everyone. They have been queuing around the block. I was down at the pop-up shop earlier, and they've now sold 90% of their stock. And for what fans were basically saying is two reasons. One, keep the club alive for as long as they can. And two, they might not even ever get to wear this shirt competitively because they've already been suspended from from the National League. The first 3 games they've been suspended. And then there's a review on the 19th of August to decide whether they will be banished altogether. All to do with this ownership, as you said, that there's a seller and a buyer. The seller won't sell, but the buyer's ready to buy. It's a very complicated situation, but when it boils down to it, the money's there to pay off the debts of this football club, to get players on board, to settle any finances and move forward. But the current owner, as you mentioned, he is reluctant to sell as it stands for whatever reason. I spoke to some of the locals earlier on, and here's what they told me about this situation.
Players have stopped training because we can't afford the insurance because we've no money left. The owner has a buyer and has been now in a situation where he's been waiting for the prospective buyers have been waiting for a month for him to sign over the club. They've agreed a fee and he keeps refusing to do so. No idea why. I have no idea what his motivation is for that.
Terrace have printed out all the shirts, everything's ready, all the merchandise is ready to go, but unfortunately at the club, because no one's been paid, people are walking. They've had to do because they've got families to feed, and even some of them are using food banks. Then this pop-up shop has just happened here, and it was out on the internet last night, and loads of fans came down buying shirts and merchandise.
Yeah, it really is incredible how the fans have rallied around, and just driving around Morecambe today, I can't believe how many home shirts I've seen. Everyone's got one on. They're very keen to show their colours, show their support, but there is a deadline, the 19th of this month. If this club is not sold by then, it could potentially go into liquidation and follow the same fate as Bury, as Macclesfield, and as you know, Martin, these football clubs are community hubs. They are a pin of the community, not just for the football, for the fans, but for local events, for businesses, hoteliers in a seaside town like this. So it really is a grave situation. If a club like this disappears, it will have detrimental impact on all the surrounding area.
You're absolutely right, Steve Bennett. It's about more than football. It's about community cohesion. It's about the whole town having a sense of worth. Let's hope the Shrimps leap like a salmon and find a benefactor and find freedom. Thank you very much, Steve Bennett. Now, if we search some holiday sun this year, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's been an exceptional event, Dawn, Armed Forces Day, raising money for veterans and their families.
Johnny, well done.
Thank you so much, very kind of you. It's been exceptional, really. I've got a lovely medal, which is another big win for the team. I just want to bring in Nick and Amanda. Amanda here is a veteran of the Australian Navy. She's married to Nick, who's a serving Royal Navy officer. How are you feeling, Amanda? Great success, well done.
My legs are hurting, but I'm so happy that we've been here today. It's just been so much fun. It really has, and for such a great cause.
And this is a charity you both support very closely, Nick.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the armed forces protect the nation. SAPA protects the armed forces. We're really happy to be out today, and it's been a super reception right the way along the route. Loads of lovely people out today, so it's been good fun. Sore legs.
And both of you met through the Navy, of course. It's an exciting armed forces love story. It must be wonderful for you to both give back to the armed forces community today.
Absolutely, and we will never stop giving back. You know, we're Matlows at heart. I'm a veteran. I work for an aerospace and defence company who are going to match our donations that we raise, and it's just really exciting. So we'll always keep giving back.
And Nick, for you, you're still serving, but you must have such a close connection with our veterans community as well. Many people you must have known on this walk here today, over 1,200. Yes. How does it feel still serving in the Royal Navy, seeing how many members of the armed forces continue to support veterans and their families?
I think you never leave the armed forces. You never leave it, and it's lovely to see that the relationships that you form in service continue after. And you know, we work very hard to stay connected to all of our old shipmates and people that we've worked with for many years and sort of sat alongside in some odd places around the world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Fast approaching 10 to 6. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the former US President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, his wife, have been subpoenaed as part of a Republican-led investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. Now, a House Oversight Committee is demanding their testimony and access to Justice Department files, citing Bill Clinton's past ties to Jeffrey Epstein and his long-standing association with Ghislaine Maxwell. The plot thickens in the Epstein scandal. Let's talk about it now. I'm joined by my next guest as the former advisor to the Clinton and the Bush administration. Great friend, Steve Gill. It's been way too long. It's beautiful to see you. This is going to get very, very spicy. The rumours go back for many, many years about how much time Bill Clinton spent with Jeffrey Epstein, how many times he went to Epstein Island, and now the dirty laundry is about to be aired in public.
Martin, it's good to be back with you. And the good news is apparently neither you nor I are on any list of any kind. But the Clintons certainly had some travel to Epstein Island and other associations with Epstein that they're wanting to explore. You know, it's bizarre because the FBI originally announced that they were taking box loads of pictures and videos and everything out of the Epstein building in New York and in Epstein Island. And then suddenly they've all disappeared. Some of the argument opposed to releasing some of the videos is that it discloses some of the young women who were victims. Nobody wants to see the faces of those women. We want to see the faces of the men who were with those women. That's the real secret, and that's not yet been disclosed.
Now, Steve Gill, Mr. Clinton flew 26 times, according to flight logs, on Epstein's private jet to that island. We don't know what went on there, and I guess we're about to find out. But critics might say this is Donald Trump himself trying to deflect from the fact that he himself has been caught in the crosshairs of this investigation.
You know, there's no question that Trump is in the Epstein files. And keep in mind, there are really three different files. One is those who flew on Epstein's aircraft to and from Mar-a-Lago and New York. No suspiciousness about that in terms of sexual depravity. Then there are those who were flying from Epstein or to Epstein Island and back from the U.S. Trump is nowhere on any of those logs, and even some of the women have said he was never there. He says he was never there. And then the final list that is important is those who were traveling with him, being friends with him long after his depravity was disclosed. And keep in mind, another reason that Trump is in the files is because he turned him in. He disclosed and started some investigation into Epstein. So, of course, as a whistleblower, he'd be in the, quote, Epstein files. So I don't think there's anything to tie President Trump to anything sordid. There is plenty to raise questions about Bill Clinton.
OK, Steve Gill, thank you very much. Of course, those testimonies, October the 14th and October the 9th. Back to studio, final blast, 30 seconds from you, Nigel Nelson. This could be one heck of a trial.
Yes, it could be. And obviously, huge names are coming into this. The important thing is what the House Oversight Committee is actually doing is trying to find out if US sex trafficking laws are working properly. There's suggestions that the FBI ignored victims' complaints. These are all things that need to be sorted out. But yes, it could be absolutely sensational because of the names coming into the frame.
And, of course, people will still be saying this is a deflection from the Trump administration. Nigel Nelson, it's been superb having you in the studio for 3 hours. I love arguing with you. I sincerely do. And I hope the viewers out there agree the same thing. Up next is somebody else I would never argue with. I wouldn't dare. She'd tear my head off. It's Jubes & Co., the queen of primetime debate. Michelle Dewberry is up next. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Your hair, it's so nice, Martin. I'd never be able to bring myself to tear your head off. Your head is safe, don't worry about that. Well, coming up on my show tonight, I've got Aaron Bastani and Peter Hitchens reunited once more. Lots to discuss. Reform UK, what are they doing when it comes to trans women and female prisons? Many people saying an open goal there for the Tories. Is it? I'll talk to one of them. Also, youth clubs, £88 million to reconnect the youth. Is that what we need? And the fallout of this one in, one out that's definitely not one in, one out. Migrant policy, that really is on full flow. So you go and get yourselves a nice brew, put your feet up, and I will see you in a few minutes.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours or so, we're going to say goodbye to the largely fine picture that we've had across much of the country through today, and instead we're going to have some wet weather arriving from the northwest. It's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic that's going to make its way southeastwards, but like I said, we do still have plenty of fine weather around at the moment, and so it's a fine evening for most of us. Some late glimmers of sunshine across the bulk of the country, but then overnight rain pushes its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, and some rain feeding into parts of northern and western England and Wales. Ahead of the rain towards the southeast, it's staying dry with some clear skies. Could turn a little fresh here, but for most, nowhere near as fresh or as cool as it was last night. A relatively mild start to the day. Then as we go through the day, we are going to see that cloud and rain gradually making its way southeastwards. It'll have already started to clear away from parts of Scotland by the time that we get to around 7 or 8. And so there'll be a bit more of a showery theme here, even some bright or sunny spells developing once that front has pushed through. A similar story across Northern Ireland, scattered showers, some sunny breaks, but across northern England, Wales, parts of the West Midlands and down towards the southwest of England, here the front will be lingering, and so it's looking quite cloudy and quite damp. Ahead of the front in the southeast, clinging onto the fine weather for a little while yet. It is going to turn cloudier here as we go into the afternoon, but the front breaks up as it makes its way across the country, so barely any rain arriving here. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers, some bright sunny spells, a bit less sunshine on offer than today, and slightly stronger winds, so not feeling quite as warm. As we go later on, we are going to continue with some showery bursts across a few places, a little bit more showery rain perhaps reaching the far southeast, but not a huge amount, and then there will be some clear skies as we go overnight into Friday, into the weekend, and there will be some wet, blustery weather towards the far north of the UK. Elsewhere, many places looking fine and temperatures rising.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Expect longer journey times on the A9 at Teicher due to emergency roadworks with temporary traffic lights. In Wales, resurfacing work on the M4 eastbound at junction 48 at Hendy has led to the closure of the exit slip road, and diversions are in place. In Northumberland, all lanes on the A69 westbound between the A6079 and the junction with the A686 are closed following a road traffic collision. Meanwhile, on the trains, ScotRail has replaced trains with buses between Inverness and Kyle of Lochhalsh and Wick, and Great Western Railway reports disruptions in the Exeter St David's area. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon